Hi, Calvary Chapel Hemet family. I'm back for another Devo, so let's go ahead and get started. I wanted to jump around just starting in 1 Samuel, but I just wanted to share what the Lord has been showing me recently throughout studying. And it's just that, like, the Lord wants you to wait and like a little add-in and worship while he does the work, which is really cool. And that it's not up to you. So starting in 1 Samuel, David was anointed king all the way. So little context, just look at David's whole life of beginning to end. And so David was anointed king in the, chapter 16, all the way back, beginning of his career, you could say. But, and he just has to sit back and wait patiently as God calls him to just worship in that time. And because it wasn't just immediately, it wasn't like, oh, you are going to be king and the next day, here's your crown. No, it was like years and years, and he went through a lot between the time of being anointed and actually becoming. So in that time, he does worship, and he writes a lot of the Psalms, and most of the Psalms are just worship, so that was cool. And just like a big thing, like another thing inside of the little idea I have been learning is like we need to wait and not just jump into things, which is kind of like waiting on the Lord and sitting back and resting as he does the work. And it's not our battle or our job to do any of the moves, you could say, but God always takes care of things, like we can see throughout our lives. And but let's start in 1 Samuel, like I said, and which is kind of like where I'm starting, and I was gonna stay here, but then I realized that this theme is like all throughout the Bible, obviously, because you get to just study God and see what he's done and how he did it and things like that. So that's kind of, I wanted to stay in 1 Samuel, but then it's like there's so many other places this happens, so I kind of added in another. But anyways, in the next chapter, after David is anointed, he fights an impossible fight against Goliath, where he has absolutely no shot. Like, it's logically impossible. But God, that's like one of my favorite phrases. But God, he's greater than any of the limits we put on him, or any of the logistics, you could say. David has such confidence in the God of his people, and was upset when someone doubted, because that's when Goliath was kind of like mocking the Israelites' God. And then all David had to do was just trust that, like, God's got this. I'm going to do my part, and he's called me to stand up and fight. See, like, when he does call you, it's not always just like a constant, always jumping in, but when he does call you to fight, go in confident. And God took over and won. And it just reminds me of Psalm 20, verse 5, which is this one. We will rejoice in your salvation, and in the name of our God, we will set up our banners. May the Lord fulfill all your petitions. And in this, they're just setting up their banners before the battle even started, like having faith, knowing God will win. Like, that's just so sweet, which is kind of what David did. Like, he didn't get to sit back and go, well, this guy's really big and scary. It was like, who are you to talk about my God? Do you know what he can do? And went in confidently, knowing that there is no chance God was going to fail and let them down. So, like, we should just have confidence in our God that he'll carry us through every time. And it was really cool. This is where I'm kind of jumping off out of 1 Samuel. Even in my reading this morning, God was just doing the work. Like, I was in Acts 16, and Silas and Paul were just beaten and imprisoned, and one, they didn't fight back while literally getting beaten, and two, they weren't complaining because they were beaten and then sent to prison, and in like the worst type, with little shackles on them and all that jazz. So, like, they weren't complaining, they didn't fight back, they were just like letting things happen and doing their one thing. They were in a really bad, gross place and not being in very good shape, just physically hurt real bad from rods, and yet they just worshipped. And God rescued them, and got done what he had planned to happen down there. Like, no matter, the situation looked really bad, but like they just worshipped. They were just like so just blessed to be able to be used. So, but in it, there's this, while they're in jail, or prison, there was this earthquake, and it says the doors opened and everyone's chains were loosed. Like, God took care of them. There was no need to worry, and they weren't like panicking there in there, being like, I wonder if God remembers us. Like they were worshiping, and beautiful, so beautiful. I can't. And I just thought it was really cool. And now after this, like after just seeing this little theme, kind of, I'm gonna look when reading scripture now and try to see all the times that God does all the work, and that the person he's talking about, or in our lives, that we just have to sit back. I just thought it was cool once you start like thinking about it and looking for it, that it's like, man, this happens a lot. So it was just really cool to see David just be patient in those years and just not go ahead and make his own self king and anything like that, where it's like he was seeking the Lord's will. And David for sure was getting weary in those times, as we see a lot of the Psalms are like, help, God, this is really hard. So, but then another important thing I really like was, who did he run to in those times? I think that was really important to look through, of how he was sustained through, how he was always looking and giving it to the Lord for more strength. And this example is just so much faith to trust God and wait in his timing, because he's got it. And boom, years later, like all the way in 2 Samuel chapter 5, from chapter 16 in book 1 versus, 2 Samuel chapter 5, that's a long time. David's finally made king, and just like God told him and equipped him to be, he just trusted. He just wasn't like, God, when's this gonna happen? Blah, like, he waited, and it happened. And he had, and also a little side note, I thought it was really funny that it brought me back to the verse of just like trials producing patience. Like, David had a lot of trials, and he had a lot of patience to be able to wait all that time, especially when Saul was chasing him, like, to be like, oh, this is fine. So I just thought that was really funny. Like, not funny, but like, oh my gosh, it's really true. So and one of the first Psalms that David wrote after he became king was Psalm 60, which is right here. Wait, nope. Which is right. I didn't put a bookmark. I'm sorry. 2 seconds. Wait. 60 verses 11 and 12. Okay, so, give us help from our trouble, for the help of man is useless. Through God we will do valiantly. Sorry, that's not how you say that word. But anyways, for it is he who shall tread down on our enemies. Like, he knows with man it's nothing, but with God you can do it. So I just thought that was, after all of David's reflecting on, and through his growth, he got to realize that so clearly. So that was really, really cool. And my little challenge for you today is just to search your heart of where in your life you aren't trusting the Lord with, and then to give it to him and ask him to help you trust him more, because I know he won't fail to just reveal that to you, and then you'll just grow closer and stronger. So it's just gonna be really sweet. So thank you for your guys' time, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.